and a great person, but we hated each other from the beginning. We just couldn't get along. And because I was like really dragging her down, and it gave me the confidence to then go on and, think that I could maybe tackle nighttime television, which is the dream of everybody on the soaps usually, that you give it a shot at least once and try to go down from daytime to nighttime. And then there, it's always kind of a launching pad to films. CBS was an aging demographic and very white Republican, and wanted to kind of mix that up a little bit. Definitely make it a younger demographic. And Dr. Quinn really, didn't fit that criteria. Maybe this is the last time this will maybe come around. Possibly. Jane, me, Willie, we can get a few other people, a little bit of other money. We could maybe have a nice little arc of stories that we could finish the whole series with. Oh, that's Alice and Vinny.
In their beautiful home. Now, that's lovely. What kind of birds are they?
Budgerie's. They're
they're Australian birds.
I didn't realize they were there.
That's lovely. Okay, well, you good and ready to go?
Yeah.
Oh, Joe Lando, this is really nice to see you.
It's nice to be seen. Thank you very much, Craig.
And from the top, I just wanted to say, I can't imagine the hell that you and your family went through in the wake of those LA wildfires. I can't even begin to imagine what you've been through.
I've been in a hurricane before. I grew up in the Midwest where there's tornadoes. I've been here for, I don't know how many fires, because I've been here since 1980 when I moved here on my own at 18. But I've never seen the combination like this, over 2,000 degrees. It melted everything.
Yes.
Yeah, you go through periods where it's okay. Last week was okay. This week's not so okay. And there's no explaining it. And I feel guilty that I did well, as far as, everybody's alive, and all I lost were possessions.
If anything can make your heart kind of warm up and sing, it is the kindness of not only strangers, but great friends. And I know your very close friend, Jane Seymour, opened the doors of her home for a while for you and your family to kind of regroup and think about what comes next.
She let 7 people come and live at her house for 6 weeks. The dogs and the birds and the whole ugly mess came to her house. And for the first easily 2 weeks, I was a basket case, thinking for sure the fire was chasing me to Jane's house and that was going to burn her place down. So I made, her back the cars up towards the doors so that easily to put everything in, because I didn't want her to make the mistake that I had made, thinking it's not going to happen.
But know this, there's a lot of people who love you and cherish the joy that you brought them all over the world. And so many people are thinking of you at this point in time. And so many, of course, are in a very similar plight.
The fire's still burning for a lot of people. A lot of people are still really suffering.
Yep, it won't go out. I'm thinking of this year for you, 2025. I did the maths, and it marks 40 years since you made your TV debut, and that was as a contestant on Star Search. You're in the acting category. Do you remember what you did, Joe?
Yeah, Rosie O'Donnell was on that one. Yeah, she was in the comedy section, and, she went on huge after the show. I not so much.
Let's rewind back to the beginning. Now, you were born in Illinois. Did your parents have anything at all to do with show business?
No, they couldn't have been any further from the business. And to say, I wanted to be an actor or something like that would have been, first of all, so egocentric. And it just, who do you think you are kind of a thing from where like, no. And that's not possible. That's for special people, and it's magic. Somehow it happens. And, I went to Disneyland with my parents. We went to California, visited an aunt, went to Disneyland one day, and we were on the back lot someplace, and they had like a fake movie set, and my dad picked up this big foam rock.
Yes.
And it looked real to me, and I thought, and then, he handed it to me, and that's when I just something clicked about, oh, all those rocks in the movies are fake. They're acting. It's not real. I know it's just this must have been like 5 or 6, but there's a realization that there's a kind of, I guess, a process behind what I was liking and having fun going. And then my dad always took me to James Bond movies. So, that was really cool.
You're in high school. Tell me if this is right. And it was your high school sweetheart who suggested an audition for a musical. And of course, we all know that showbiz adage of breaking a leg. You got the gig, but you literally did break a leg.
My girlfriend in high school is Alison La Placa. I lived vicariously through her through high school because she was in every play, and she could sing and she could, dance and act. And I never wanted to tell anybody what I wanted to do, that I wanted to give that a shot, not the singing and dancing so much, but I wanted to act. I wanted to, trick people like I'd been tricked into thinking this is real. And I really wanted to be a mountain man because I saw Jeremiah Johnson and then Richard Harrison, Man in the Wilderness, and just movies like that really stuck out in my mind, and all the Westerns that my father loved. So through all of that, one day the opportunity came up, and they were, it was a Little Abner musical going on, and they needed some guys who would pick up the girls in the dancing. So they came to gym class. It was in wrestling, and asked for volunteers. And me and my friend were like, yeah. So Allison didn't encourage me directly. She didn't say, go ahead and be in the musical. But then I told her I'm in this musical, and she didn't believe it. And we were having a good time, me and my buddy Dave, in class. And then one night we're up at my friend's cabin, and we're having a little party, and we're trying to show the girls in the room this routine we've been working on in Little Abner. And this one girl isn't getting it. So I said to my friend Dave, since he knew it, I go, you be Emily and just come on over and jump up. Let's show them how it goes. And I didn't take in consideration the weight difference. He just jumped up in the air, and I went to swing him, and I fell forward on my left foot. And even though Led Zeppelin was blaring in the background, you could hear my foot go. And that was the end for me in running dancing and musical career. I still loved it. I still went to everything Allison did. And then she went to college, and I just dreamed of becoming a stuntman so that I could become an actor. At 18, I took $400 in my suitcase, and I moved to California on my own. I worked at a restaurant, and I just stayed and struggled in California, for 10 years, trying to find a way in, and it eventually just happened.
Yes. You were talking about Alison La Placa. Of course, she went on to have a really nice career. I remember she was Joanna on Friends, who was Rachel Green's boss, and dated Chandler Bing in the show. And I think, if I'm right, Joe, you and Alison reunited years later on the John Larroquette show. Is that right?
Yeah, that was really cool because, we came from a school in a little town outside of Chicago, 600 people. And all of a sudden we're both on the show, and she's starring, and she calls me up one day and says, hey, Joey, the producers have this idea about getting you and I together as old, lovers from school and blah, blah, blah. And it takes place on this train. She tells me the whole story, and I go, for sure, I'd love to do that. Everybody's been going, how did they do that? And so, yeah, we were able to work together, and that was an experience for me because I've never done a 3-6 comedy, 3-camera comedy like that, in front of a couple live audiences. You do it several times, and then they edit it together, and they change it on the fly. I mean, literally, it's like, okay, we're cutting out all this stuff. You're not getting laughs there, and we're going for this over here. And people who do it every day are used to it, but I only done one show like that, ever, and that was hers. And so, I mean, I was just sweating bullets. I didn't want to embarrass her or myself. And I knew a lot of our friends that we went to school with would be watching, and it was a neat experience.
You talked about working as a chef, and you got to cater too on some movie sets along the way, didn't you?
Biggest film I worked on was a movie called Silkwood, and it starred Meryl Streep and Kurt Russell and Cher. And I mean, just a whole slew of actors. If you've ever seen the movie, and Michael Nichols directed it.
Of course.
Yes. But I was 19 and catering on this movie and working, 19 hours a day, just that I was so young I could do it. And I was having the experience of being able to do my job. And then my boss would give me a break when everything was caught up and ready. And I just run down to the set and, usually bring food, kind of like craft service person would, but then hang out on the set, just to watch what was going on. And sometimes I had, at the beginning, I had no idea what I was even watching. Oh, I'm standing here in the way as the guys are trying to lay down the cables, because then they're going to set up the lights, and then the grips are going to come in and shade it all, and learning how that whole process went all around. And then afterwards, just being able to go and watch Meryl do a scene. And that was great, being able to sit on the set, and they let me, and then I was able to, the director, Mike Nichols, had his private chef come in. It was this Belgian chef just for the dailies, which are you watch what shot the day before, the following day. And this was filmed back then. So it'd have to be developed and delivered back. And then in a movie theater in the studio, we had watched these dailies, and it was really neat. I'd never seen that before, take after take after take. Them talking about it. They had the heads of the department there, and I'd be preparing the food and helping Henri serve it to them. And this was on top of my other regular job, but I just was able to go and do that for a couple hours a day, and then come back and do my regular work. And that was a neat experience, because I got to be someplace where a 19-year-old kid who was a caterer wouldn't have the opportunity, but I made sure that whenever the opportunity of something presented itself, I'm doing extra work for free. It wasn't for free. For me, I was getting the experience of being in this room, learning things or hearing things that I normally wouldn't have been privy to, and seeing people that are at the top of their game.
And I can imagine the calls back to your mum. I'm hanging with Meryl Streep and Mike Nichols and Cher today, just by the way, in case you're wondering.
I have a funny story. My mother never came to the set. She was really scared of flying back then. She, as she got older, was flying everywhere, especially me in her 90s. We were traveling, but my father came to visit me, because this whole catering thing, my dad loved food. He was like, they pay you to make food, and they pay your hotel. And I'm like, yeah, Dad, come on down. You'll have a great time. It's a really big movie, and it's a big budget, come see this. And so he was down there with me. And I remember one day I'm in the truck busy, and he's one of the first people I served, right? And he goes and takes off. And then, of course, I served the actors first too, because they have to get done makeup and everything afterwards, so they could serve first too. And then the rest of the crew, there's like 100 and some people I'm serving, and I don't see where my dad goes to for like 40 minutes or so. Mm-hmm. And then I'm like, damn, I gotta go check on my dad. Asked the guys to cover me, and I'm walking around. I can't find my dad anywhere. Looking at all the tables, all the other guys he talked to during the day. And I go inside the studio, and I'm walking around like, Dad. And I hear people laughing from the wardrobe room. And I go over to wardrobe, and there's Cher and Meryl Streep and the head of wardrobe, Ann Roth, an older woman who I'd always make buttermilk pancakes for. My father.
Oh, absolutely priceless.
Yeah, he's just listening to the ladies and hanging out, and they're like, your dad's so cute. He's just a little Italian guy with a round little face, happy he's eating all this food for free. Lobster. So anyway, that's my Silkwood story.
Oh, that's beautiful. Your first audition in Hollywood, I think, was for that John Travolta, Jamie Lee Curtis movie, Perfect. And you actually got a role, but you knocked it back because it certainly wasn't what you wanted to do.
No, but I went and I read with Mike Nichols, one of the producers and the director, Brooks, I believe was the director, and reading with John Travolta. Not like, but John Travolta is like reading with me. And I grew up watching, him as Vinnie Barbarino and Welcome Back Kotter. And then when Saturday Night Fever came out, I was trying my best to do disco, and it just wasn't working. But here I am doing this scene with him, and then chit-chatting with the guys, and afterwards went out of there. And I thought, well, holy cow, what a beginning. And they went, oh, great, we'd love to have you. It was like a Chippendales dancer. And, I had like one silly line, and I just didn't want to forever see myself as this Chippendales dancer, no matter how big a break it would have been. I just didn't think it was all right. And the movie wasn't that great either. So, but anyway, I was pretty excited to have that first audition and meet John Travolta and go through that whole thing. Crickets for a long time. Then it was just for a long time.
Yeah, but you get a little gig on Star Trek 4, though. The Voyage Home with I think Leonard Nimoy was directing that, and there you are, with the whole Star Trek gang, William Shatner, etc. What was that experience like? Do you have fond memories of making that?
Supposed to have one day work. I had, under 5 lines and one quick day of shooting, and I needed the money desperately. It just came at such a great time. I was not going to make my rent, and this job paid $600 for the day. Just, um, and ended up going 3 days because they just fell behind. So I sat in my chair. I got there every morning. I drove my little MGB, which broke down religiously. It was like, I didn't stop for gas. I just stopped for mechanic, and that was killing me. And so anyway, my MG luckily got me to 3 days of work, and I sat there for, 8 hours every day until they released me. And then on the third day I worked, and I had my first scene was just running down some steps, chasing, Star Trek guys. And back then it was, I was holding a steady, just a camera, not a steady cam, but just a regular old camera handheld. And Leonard Nimoy standing right over the cameraman's back, kind of looking at what the shot's going to look like. And we rehearsed it a couple times, and he decides to stay right there on the platform between the two flights, right? And it's kind of crowded, but I have my special action shoes on, and I'm supposed to be a cop. And I come running down the stairs on action, and I hit the first couple steps, and then I didn't touch the rest of them. And I literally fell the rest of the way, and right in the Leonard Nimoy, boom, into the cameraman, boom, all of us into the wall. And I'll get up, and I'm just, boom, I bound up right away. And I was like, you okay? I pick him up. Hey, you okay? You okay? Everyone's okay. All right, let's go again. And I apologize like crazy, of course. And we go again. This time, Leonard Nimoy doesn't stand on the stairs. He very cleverly stays to the side. And have the next 3 days. I mean, the next day I finish work, and I'm driving home. My car breaks down on a hill, luckily, and I coasted down the 405 freeway until there was an off ramp, and then I was able to get off and push my car the rest of the way home. But I still get paid. I got a check the other day with the mail for like, $2, but over the years, it's paid me like $30,000 from a $600 job, just little, but it just keeps paying. And and that was my first big gig. I got to go to a movie theater, Chinese theater in Hollywood, and then see myself for 2 seconds. But
Oh, I know, but what an experience that must have been. 1990, you sign on for a role, a big role in that legendary drama series, One Life to Live. Joe, what people don't know is that making soap operas is incredibly grueling. The amount of dialogue you've got to pop in your head is absolutely dizzying, in those tough schedules. How did you cope with that?
just barely, I had a grandmother who came to America from Poland at 14. And I always use that because in New York, we're not far from Ellis Island, right? Statue of Liberty, I would see every day. So I would think about her coming from Poland, not speaking English, coming to America and being able to do it. And I was 27 years old, turned 28 there. I think had been living in California for 10 years, waiting for this break, and it happened. And there was just no way I was going to let go. I was like a pit bull. And it was really tough because you hit the ground running on those things, and they give you a 6-week contract. And I wasn't brought in as just a little character. I was brought in as like the young female lead on the show's potential boyfriend, this Luke and Laura, this big, big couple that they were thinking about building this into. So I didn't realize all that stuff. I just was like, I'm going to be on the soap, and I'm guaranteed 1.5 days a week and for 6 weeks. And so that was the most money I've ever made in my life. And I was super excited, and I got there, and my character had 5 pages like the first day, and then like 10, and then 15. And they've got to hover around 20 pages a day a lot of times. And I was freaking out. Sometimes I had insomnia then because I was so stressed. So sometimes I'd be like for 2-3 days, just memorizing my stuff, trying to take a nap, waking up, taking a shower, getting the script, working on it all day long. And then you get to work at 7, and right away, you wait to go up and do just a rehearsal of the words, and then a blocking. And then you go down and get dressed for makeup and stuff. And then it's usually lunch. And afterwards, after lunch, you start shooting the show, usually in chronological order. And you're there until like 5, 6 at night, and then back home, and then start the whole process again. But everyone kept telling me, because they see sweating bullets. And all the other actors have been there a long time, and they're all in New York, and a lot of them have been doing theater. And so anyway, they don't give you a break. They're not easy on you. It's like, hey kid, it's pretty tough, isn't it? And they've all been through it. So it's, like being a Marine or something, they go through this initiation. It was just, baptism by fire, working with these folks and trying my hardest and not giving up. And Jessica Tuck, who played opposite me, was so good at what she did. Just such a bright woman, and a great person, but we hated each other from the beginning. We just couldn't get along. And because I was like really dragging her down, trying my hardest, but dragging her down. And she had been doing it for a few years at that point. But eventually we hit it off. And then they brought in Brian Tarantino, a Broadway New York actor, very, very New York, to play my best friend. He became my best friend in New York. And then in, real life, we were very close for years. And it was the best training ground. I mean, you can go to acting class and you can go on auditions for your whole life, but you do a year on the soap and, you've learned some stuff. And especially now, I've gone back and I've done Bold and Beautiful. And now it's even harder than it used to be. Those people are doing sometimes 6 shows in a day.
It is baptism by fire, isn't it? No doubt about it.
And Jessica Tuck and I had a scene that was her death scene in the show, which became pretty famous and kind of helped me get the Dr. Quinn gig, because it attracted so much attention. But we had 72 pages, just the two of us. So it's almost like a play. And plus our regular work. So we knew we were going to shoot the 72 pages on a Saturday, which they never work on a Saturday, but this was a big deal and a big long scene. We want to do one, from beginning to end. And it was great. And it gave me the confidence to then go on and, think that I could maybe tackle nighttime television, which is the dream of everybody on the soaps usually, that you give it a shot at least once and try to go down from daytime to nighttime. And then there, it's always kind of a launching pad to films, and that was my hopeful trajectory. Kevin Kline had done it, Debbie Moore, just a whole bunch of people.
From there, I think you did a pilot that never went to air with George Clooney, and you were the first person to be cast in Dr. Quinn, Medicine Woman.
Yeah, I did that pilot, and I really wanted the part that George got. That he was so well liked that literally when I would go on auditions and see him there, I'd be like, forget about it. I mean, if he was there, it was just like, no, I don't even want to go in. I don't want to sit here and listen to everybody laugh at him, through the door. One time he brought a 6-pack of beer to an audition, and I knew the director, and I was thinking I was going to definitely get this. In walks George at the end. It's like the last slot on the list for the day. It's going to be 5 o'clock on a Friday, and he brings in a 6-pack and went in there and put it on the desk and said, "Why don't we just open this and assume I'm getting the gig or whatever?" He had something like that, But that was him, and but I didn't get the lead. I get this little teeny part because I thought he was an interesting character. He was a construction worker whose wife was a cop, and she was a tough guy. Not him. He was a sensitive one in the relationship, and she was the tough one. And I thought that was an attractive, a change in that kind of character. And I did it. The pilot went nowhere, but from it became this pilot development deal that CBS gave me. And it was 3 refusals. They give you a little bit of money up front. And they say, we're going to send you 3 scripts and you have 3 chances. And if you don't like any of them, well, then you give us the money back. And we keep this, and so who's going to say no? They're going to say yes to one of them, get all the money, and at least get something under your belt, right? But anyway, the very first script they sent was Dr. Quinn. And I'm like, yes. No, yeah, I'd like this one. Well, it's a Western, I remember my agent going, hey, it's a Western. What are the chances of it going? Those days, they didn't want Westerns. Although Unforgiven had just been out and Dances with Wolves. So they were like, well, let's give it a shot and let's make it a little tougher and we'll throw it in and have a female lead, and see if we can make it a Western. But they did. And, yeah. in Springtime for Nazis ended up being Dr. Quinn, medicine woman.
And then into the mix came the incredible Jane Seymour. You two just had that magic on screen, didn't you? There was that immediate chemistry, and that's what made that show such a huge success for the years it was.
Yeah, you do feel it, I remember the day being on the set, where we didn't have a lot of work together, but I hung out, watched her again. Like I watched Meryl Streep work, and I'd watch other actors, even on the soap. I would still watch other actors work, and knew their stuff so well. Even watching someone hit a mark, people think it's easy. You walk in and say, dude, you're doing props, and a lot of times when you're in your close up and you come into it, you don't want to move too much to the left or to the right, or you learn tricks then about how to blow somebody else's shot. And you learn when another actor is doing it to you, which is something, tricks of the trade. I learned on the soap, people would try to upstage you all the time just as a game. And on the set with Jane, you don't do any of that stuff.
No.
But you do show up in time, you do know your stuff. And luckily I'd been trained in the soap. That's how I was. But I learned a ton from watching Jane again. And when we did have some meaty scenes, with some dialogue and stuff, it was there. I remember there's a scene in the general store where there are no words other than I come in and kind of save her butt a little bit in the scene, and we just have this look. And I think that was that day that we're like, boop, you could feel, okay, with chemistry. And I felt like that was the day too that I really became the character. There was something that happened on the set, something where, you go, oh, now I'm due. I got it.
I mean, almost overnight, everybody is talking about you. They're talking about the series. 1993, I'll bring you to this. People magazine names you one of their 50 most beautiful people on the planet. I think they called you what? The big hunk on the prairie.
It was kind of dizzying. I have to admit, there was so much going on all of a sudden. But one of the good things was we were working so hard on Quinn, and they started doing things like ordering. You usually do 22 episodes. It's just 22 weeks of work spread out over the year. We are getting 28 episodes and more, extending our season, doing movies of the week for Saturday night, a very special Dr. Quinn. They would see an episode that was supposed to be an hour long, like Cattle Drive was, I think, the first one. And so they're seeing dailies and liking what they're seeing. So they go, you know what, we're going to make this a 2-hour movie. So they were able to get a 2-hour movie from just 2 episodes put together on a show, which was financially a benefit for them, because they were selling them as movies on the weekend, but really they were shot as episodes. And it just became, more and more that thing, and just everything was getting to be a lot. And we had Johnny Cash on the show a few times. And one day he was sitting underneath the big oak tree. That's no longer there, sadly, by himself. And we had a scene coming up later on that day. And I thought, this is a good time to go over. I hadn't really talked to him much, but everybody on the set was just so impressed. But it's Johnny Cash, like nobody had ever seen before. People just were in awe of him. And I went over and sat down with Johnny, and we started just, chit-chatting, shooting the breeze, and then worked on our lines a little bit. And then I was like, Johnny, you've been doing this for so long. It's like, how do you know when it's enough or it's too much? Or have you ever felt that way? Like, just too much? And how do you deal with, like, he's been doing it for decades. And, and that Johnny Cash, he said, Joe, never become a slave to your possessions, and always, be true to yourself in this. Don't get lost. Don't believe the good and the bad that you'll hear. Just believe in you, and he just really said, he's there and has to work as many days and years as he does, because all these other people depend on him, that travel with it, in his band. But he also loves it at the same time. So he can never stop that train. And he said, just, try your best to be happy and family. He says it's really important to keep you grounded. And, I took that to heart. And my family became my priority over everything.
You got to work with some great people on that show, Joe. I mean, you were talking about Johnny Cash, his wife, June Carter Cash, was there as well, Willie Nelson. These are moments in your life that are these incredible markers that you never forget.
I got to carry Kenny Rogers. I carried a lot of people on the show over the years. And the worst thing is like when a grown man goes limp, like he's going dead, like, dead weight. Tried to hold Kenny 210, 220. Okay, there we go. But anyway, yeah. And so many experiences to work with great actors and some of the best television directors that are at the time, working, some of the best stuntmen, and that was a good thing that I was working with guys who were legends in the business at the time, and I was getting to do stunts like I had dreamed about running on the top of a train when I was a kid.
I know that the world fell in love with your character for a bunch of reasons. There was Byron Sully's swagger. There was that mountain man macho. Of course, there was his hair. And I read somewhere, and this is interesting, you're a very big fan of Jim Morrison, and you kind of based in part Byron's look and his charisma on Jim Morrison and kind of Jeremiah Johnson, a movie that you mentioned earlier in our chat.
Very much so. I mean, that was exactly, I totally ripped off Jim Morrison's walk, his hair. I was wearing my hair as much as I could, just like he was at his peak. And even I grew a beard at one point just to kind of do an homage. Only I knew that, but I did his walk for the first time on the show, on the pilot after in a fight in the bar. And I come walking out, and the carriage pulls away at Jane, and I reach my hand out, and I do my best Jim Morrison kind of dig down the street as the scene fades. But and yeah, and his whole, Jim Morrison was always trying to get in touch with his kind of spiritual self and the shamans and things like that. So that's where I got that Jim Morrison thing from him. And then of course just the way Robert Redford played his roles, Jeremiah Johnson. And a little bit of Steve McQueen thrown in there because those were two guys that he was acting and I always thought I could come closest to, possibly with my skill set. And Steve McQueen, I told my acting coach, Vincent Chase, way in the beginning, guys who I admired, and one was Steve McQueen, and he said, Steve McQueen had this thing where he always had a secret, and he played it in his eyes. Always had that, I got a secret in my eyes, If they ask you a question or something's going on, be thinking about, but then also think about that secret that you have. And he was right. And I did that all the time, or tried to with Sully, because he had a small amount of dialogue, very small a lot of times, but I had to do something. And I tried to use, my baby blues.
I know there was a lot of debate on your hair. Was that a wig? Was that your real hair? Well, it actually was your real hair. But then when you did that wonderful send-up, the Funny or Die people are just so clever. And what great guys you and Jane were to be part of this. Dr. Quinn, Morphine Woman. And that obviously was a wig because it was going halfway down your back.
We showed up early that morning, and like a week or maybe 10 days before, Jane and I drove around. She had this idea for this Dr. Morphine, Dr. Quinn Morphine Woman, and presented it to Funny or Die because they had approached her for something, and she came up with this, and they liked it, and they were like, let's do it. We made a date as to when we were going to shoot the thing at the Paramount Ranch, and she said, well, Joe and I will get on the phone and see who we can get involved. And she had a doctor's appointment for her back, and so we drove around in her car. I drove her, and we got on the phone, and with her phone book, we called everybody that we could think of and said, hey, we're doing this. Are you interested? And, you saw that if anybody saw that Funny or Die, we got quite a group together. And I think 90% of it was like ad lib, just going for it. They gave us the, this is what we're expecting, kind of blah, 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 and this is the scene and go. And again, I worked later on in the day, but I was there early in the morning. We're all there first thing in the morning, excited to be around each other. It was like a party, having coffee, and it's cold outside, just like the old days, and sitting with Orson hanging out. And I go to makeup, and they have a wig, and it's not the greatest wig again. Wigs aren't very good usually. And they put this thing on me. It's like 8 o'clock in the morning, 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning. And I don't really shoot until about 4:30 in the afternoon, 5. but I'm there all day long and I'm watching the other people shoot and just laughing my ass off at what they're doing. And my wig keeps going back further and further on my head, until at one point it's just like that. And they go, "Oh, come in and make it really quick and let us fix it." I was like, no, 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 this is perfect. It wouldn't be perfect because me, Joe Lando, doesn't really get it, and I'm still in that kind of like Sully mode. And so, yeah, I laughed so hard when I saw that part, and then the throwing of her glasses and all that stuff.
You're all such good sports.
We would have paid them to let us go do that. Honestly, it was fun.
You could see that it absolutely leapt through the screen. Why did Dr. Quinn finish when it did?
I have my theory that it doesn't necessarily align with a lot of the other ones that you might have heard, but I know definitely one of the things was Les Moonves just came into power at CBS. It's a very, heady position to be in, and usually when folks come in there, they clean house and they want to start anew. And to Les's credit, he realized that the demographic of CBS was an aging demographic and very white Republican, and wanted to kind of mix that up a little bit. Definitely make it a younger demographic. And Dr. Quinn really, didn't fit that criteria, I believe. And he might have given us another year because all we did was make money for CBS. We were in-house production, meaning they didn't buy it from anybody else. They made it. The equipment that we shot with, not the cameras were rented, but the lighting and everything said CBS on them. They had been around since literally like Little House on the Prairie and Gunsmoke. They had paid for themselves many times over. So, and the production company has to rent that equipment from CBS. So it's all like, there was no logical financial reason to get rid of us other than this is somebody else's stuff. I'm the new guy in town. And so I think that was the major reason, but I think we could have squeezed out one more season, or maybe in that season, if people were willing to adapt the show a little bit. It had to sooner or later go through some type of change in order for it to not be pictured as soft as it was, but still have the same values and everything. Curiously enough, I was just speaking with William Shockley yesterday, who played Hank, and he has a wonderful, wonderful treatment for what the new show could be, and I think maybe this is the last time this will maybe come around, possibly.
Right. Wow.
If stars align here, that being Tim Johnson, one of the old producers from Dr. Quinn, also Reverend was named after him. He is kind of so he would, maybe be able to be involved with it. That would be a big plus.
And Jane would be on board, I'm assuming.
Jane, me, Willie, we can get a few other people. And William's a very talented human being. He just directed a movie called Long Shadows. He also helped to write it, produced it, and I'm really looking forward to seeing it. It's coming out in September. I think he could direct this. I think he could write this show. I think, with Beth's blessing and a little bit of other money, we could maybe have a nice little arc of stories that we could finish the whole series with.
That's fabulous. I want to have a quick chat about Higher Ground. That was a series that you executive produced, and also starred in. That was around 2000. I reckon, Joe, a grossly understated series. You played the headmaster, the school for kind of wayward boys. It launched the career of Hayden Christensen. I know Ryan Gosling auditioned and so forth, but that series was such an inspiration and essentially saved lives. Why was it so short-lived?
The network was sold, and again, everything changed. It was Fox Family. And I don't know if that was absorbed by ABC. I Am Saban owned Fox Family, I think, at the time. And yeah, it had nothing to do with the show. It was just, we were in a bad place, you know, at the wrong time. Um, yeah, I wish somebody else would have picked it up. It was a great show, and I thought I had at least 3 years on that show, at least, you know. AJ Cook, Megan Ory, Jewel State, Hayden Christensen, um, yeah, Ryan Gosling. I remember because I got to be executive producer of the show along with Schwartz, Doug Schwartz, and From Life Goes On, Michael Braverman. Two very successful producers of very different genre shows, you know, Baywatch and Life Goes On, but together, I mean, we were great. And it was the beginning of Lionsgate Studios, and Paramount was also footing the bill for the half the thing. And so I really thought we had a long time there, but when the networks have already changed hands, it went away. But it was a show I was extremely proud of. I really put a lot of myself into that. Learned to climb because I wanted the character. You know, it was kind of on the nose, but he'd been a Wall Street, climber, a big shot in Wall Street financial world, and became a drug addict in the process, and now was trying to save other kids, both men, in this kind of Outward Bound program. And it was right up my alley. I was like, they pitched it to me, and I would like kind of help massage the idea into what I wanted it to be. More story driven, not just action, because they promised me you'll be outside and you'll be skiing and climbing and doing. I was like, I love it. This is what I want, but I also want it to be, meaning something. I don't want it to be, no knock, but I don't want it to be Baywatch, and it ended up being something where I've gotten over the years, thousands of fan letters from Soap and Dr. Quinn. A lot of the time it's your hair, oh, it's beautiful hair and yada, 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 and all the stuff. That's nice to hear, but it's just, it's just someone tell you how beautifully the letters that I was getting on Higher Ground were thank you, saved my life. And then the story with the Juliet was just me and I'm not alone. And, just Hayden's character and what he was going through being so popular and having this incestual thing going on in his life that he couldn't talk about. We just did some really good stories I was very proud of. And I kept those fan letters up until, I lost my house. They were still in my office, and then nothing else. I've never kept a fan letter other than those, because they meant so much and they weren't about superficial crap.
I know you did another series that too I thought was great fun with a wonderful cast, Britt Robertson and Thomas Dekker and Gail Harold, The Secret Circle. And that had some of the most amazing effects you would see on television. And I read somewhere that that's why it too was short-lived.
It was an expensive show. I mean, I know the difference, not just the effects, the sets and everything. Although it's Vancouver, that's where we were shooting. The funny thing was we were shooting the same stages that used to be mine for Higher Ground, and here I am back just, in a little honey wagon thing and on this other show, but loved it, working with a bunch of young, fun actors. They were good. The show was good. It was well written, I believe. I was kind of hesitant at first to play a witch, not a warlock, a witch. It was a whole different world that these guys living, and had to learn that language. But one of my favorite characters I've ever played, he was Blackwell, John Blackwell, and I took the back from my chair because I liked it so much. But yeah, I really loved him, and the cool thing about that character is that even though the writers kind of knew which direction they were going with, they weren't sure I was going to be on 10 episodes or 13, something like that. But they didn't know if he was good or bad, and they weren't. And then when they did figure out, they didn't tell me. I didn't really want to know, because that way I could play it really honestly. What I thought I was doing was good, but always question some of my motivations as the actor, putting the character, and John was just such a great liar, because I really know, so I could be very convincing if I truly believe what I was saying was true, and then find out in the next episode, oh, I was lying.
You spoke a little while ago about how to you family is everything. And you've been married to your wife, Kirsten, now for 28 years, 4 kids. Are any of your kids following in Dad's footsteps?
No, and actually, not until most recently, October, I was shooting a movie in Tennessee called The Legend of Van Dorn, which is coming out very soon. I have mentioned very, very happy about that. But Jack, first kid to come visit me on the set that can actually remember. He'd been to a few sets when he was younger. And we used to always travel together until we had 2 kids. Then it was just too difficult, and once they start school and stuff. So the kids, I never really wanted them in this business or involved in it. I watched the kids on Dr. Quinn, and they had the most normal existence on Dr. Quinn because we were just as normal as you could get. We were out, not in the studio. We were out in the boonies all by ourselves, shooting with the same people. It was just like a family. It was like we were making a home movie. The kids weren't brats. They were all great kids. But when Friday, was cut and everybody went home, they went and lived their lives, and they weren't Hollywood kids. They lived kind of out where the ranch was, and I never saw them, unless there was some special get together thing for the show. But it wasn't like they were kids when I was an adult. I wasn't going to go hang out with them. We didn't have anything in common besides the show, but they were wonderful and they were really grounded. Their parents were all good people. But I didn't always see that. I worked with some kids that were just, like, oh, you're so cute and precocious. And I don't want to be around you, but, sorry.
So your kids are
We're not going to be in that. They're not anywhere near the business, and they don't even know much of what I do.
Yeah.
Jack was very impressed to come to the set and see me working. And, he's never seen it before. Everybody's business and some going, all of a sudden your dad and a few other guys walk to the set and everyone goes away, and it's like the stage is yours for a bit.
Yeah. Oh, that's good news for your fans, Joe. That's for sure. The Legend of Van Dorn, out later this year. What's next on your agenda?
Then in October we're supposed to shoot again in Tennessee on another true story. It's not a period piece though. And can't say much about that, but it's pretty much a go. And then Jane's always trying like crazy to get me on Very Wild. For 5 years I've been on Gonna Be Next Week, but it's kind of it's a cost thing, a SAG, Screen Actors Guild contract kind of deal that kind of holds us up. But there'll be something else. I'm confident. I now I need work, dude.
I hear you. I know, with all you've been through, that's for sure. Joe, it's been an absolute joy talking to you. What a really decent, lovely person you are.
No, thank you. It's been a pleasure. I hope everybody enjoys this, and you see The Legend of Van Dorn. And I want to again thank everybody from the bottom of my heart, my family, my dogs, and my birds. Thank you all for your kindness and your support.
From the ashes, that phoenix does rise.
Thank you very much, Greg. I appreciate it.
If you love that interview, and I'm sure you did because the feedback is flooding in now, you know what you do to keep up to date with all of this. You hit the like button, of course. You hit the subscribe button that is down there, and you hit that little bell button, and that means you'll be alerted when the next interview drops on Celebrity Drop. That's why we call it Celebrity Drop. I shall catch you next time, and with bells on. Bye.